Welcome back to another episode of Both Sides of the Bed with your girl, Kemesha. Today's episode is one I know is going to touch someone. It's going to hit a nerve, it's going to open wounds, it's going to make someone uncomfortable, but in the best way. Because we're talking about something people run away from every single day. We're talking about vulnerability, being honest, showing up, doing the work, healing, actually taking accountability for the way you show up in relationships and friendships and with your family. And I want to start by saying this. I didn't just learn about vulnerability yesterday. I didn't wake up last week and decide to be open with my heart. I've always been this way. I've been this woman who's soft enough to feel, strong enough to show up, brave enough to speak my truth. Even when my voice shakes, even when being honest costs me people, even when telling the truth means saying goodbye to relationships I really wanted to keep. But here's the part that changed me. I stopped making space for people who can't offer that same strength back. I stopped entertaining people who hide behind silence, behind fear, behind inconsistency, behind excuses, behind emotional laziness. Because once you do the work on yourself, once you start healing and growing and showing up as your the fullest version of you, you realize you can't keep letting people in your life who haven't even started their journey. It's not even selfish if they're not emotionally intelligent. And it's not your fault because they need to start doing the work on themselves without excuses. This episode is for people who feel like they love too hard, or they show up too much, or they care too deeply. And I'm here to tell you, there is nothing wrong with you. Your vulnerability is not the problem. The problem is that the world taught you to be ashamed of it. The problem is that you've been giving your heart to people who weren't emotionally equipped to receive it. The problem is that we live in a society where pretending is easier than being real, where silence is more comfortable than honesty, and where people's childhood trauma is running their adult relationships. Let's talk about it. Because a lot of people are not emotionally unavailable. They're emotionally unhealed. They grew up in homes where emotions weren't welcome. Homes where being sensitive made you weak. Homes where crying got you yelled at. Homes where showing your feelings didn't get you comfort. It got you punished. Homes where you learn early that your voice didn't matter and your opinions didn't hold value. I'm here to tell you that vulnerability is not weakness. It's strength. And it's sexy as hell. And when a child grows up like that, they turn into an adult who sees vulnerability as danger. They turn into someone who feels safest behind walls, someone who chooses distance instead of conversation, someone who would rather lose the relationship than admit they're hurting. They think shutting down protects them, but it doesn't. They think silence keeps them safe, but it doesn't. They think being detached makes them strong, but that's trauma. That's survival mode. That's a child still living inside a grown body, still trying to protect themselves from wounds that was never their fault. And a lot of people don't even realize this. Trauma doesn't just sit in your memories. No. It shows up in how you love and every single day of your life. Trauma decides how deeply you connect, how long you stay, how fast you run, and how honest you are, how open you're willing to be. What a lot of people don't realize is trauma teaches you to anticipate disappointment before it happens, to expect abandonment before it arrives, to assume love is temporary before it has a chance to be true. Trauma makes you believe, you know, this is just who I am. When the truth is, this is who you became to survive. That's not you. And this is why so many people can't be vulnerable. Because vulnerability requires honesty. It requires emotional exposure. It requires saying, this is how I feel, with no guarantee that the person listening will care or understand or stay. Vulnerability requires courage, and a lot of people are living scared. Scared to speak, scared to feel, scared to be seen, scared to admit the truth. So instead, they build surface relationships. And you know what's sad about some people? They fear connection more than relationships, than lies, than cheating. They ruin relationships because fear makes them silent. Fear makes you avoid conversation that save relationships. Fear makes you pretend you don't care when you do. Fear makes you walk away from someone you would have loved, who would have loved you properly. It makes you choose comfort over growth, pride over peace, and distance over depth. Oh boy, that's heavy. And here's the real truth. The people who struggle the most with vulnerability are the ones who needed emotional safety the most as children, but they never got it. When a child grows up without safety, they turn into an adult who doubts everything. They question motives. They misinterpret tone. They overthink intentions. They expect the worst from people because they never learned what safety felt like. And when someone finally shows them love, their instinct is to push it away because love feels unfamiliar. Connection feels foreign to them. Honesty feels threatening. So instead of stepping into it, They step back, not because they don't feel it, but because they don't feel worthy of it. And that's so sad. And then there are people who love deeply, but inconsistently. They show up in moments, but disappear when things get real. They feel connection, but they fear the commitment. They want closeness, but fear losing themselves. And this also traced back to childhood trauma. Yep. To inconsistency, to instability, to not knowing what version of your parent you were going to get that day. Some children learn to cling to others, learn that if they cling to others, they learn distance. They cling to others to learn distance. But both grew up with emotional wounds that follow them into adulthood. The saddest part is this: most people don't even know they're avoiding vulnerability. They don't. They think they're protecting their peace. They think they're guarding their heart. They think they're not ready. But really, they're terrified. They're scared of the one thing that would actually heal them: honesty. Honesty with themselves, honesty with others, honesty about their wounds, honesty about their needs, honesty about their patterns. People don't heal because healing requires accountability. They know it requires accountability. Healing requires saying, I've been hurt, but I'm hurting people. Healing requires facing the past of yourself you'd rather hide. It requires breaking the emotional habits that kept you alive as a child, but now it keeps you stuck as an adult. Healing requires admitting that your parents didn't always have the tools. Healing requires accepting that some of what you learned about love was wrong. Healing requires transforming and transformation. It requires knowing that transformation always demands discomfort. It's easier to distract yourself than to reflect. It is. I would like to do it sometimes, but I have to come back to reality. It's easier to scroll than to sit with your feelings. It's easier to jump into a new relationship than to face the wounds from the last one. It's easy to say, this is just how I am, than to admit, this is who I became because of what happened to me. Healing is work, hard work. And a lot of people they simply aren't ready to meet themselves at that level. They'll rather be in relationships with no commitment, just surface level connection, and they think it's okay. They'll jump from relationship to relationship so easily because they don't want to take accountability. They run from their feelings if they feel too deep. But I want to remind you of something. There is nothing more attractive, more rare, and more powerful than someone who is emotionally courageous, someone who says what they feel instead of pretending, someone who shows up, someone who communicates, someone who tries, someone who has done the work and continues to do the work, someone whose consistency matches their character, someone who speaks their truth without tearing others down, someone who isn't afraid of love because they've learned how to love themselves first. You know what I love about me? I'm that woman. I'm soft enough to be vulnerable, solid enough to be consistent, and brave enough to speak my truth. And because of the work I've done on myself, the late nights, the self reflection, the accountability, the tears, the boundaries, the growth, the healing, shit, I refuse to welcome anyone in my life who can't meet me at that same level of strength. I don't chase emotionally unavailable people. No. I don't even freaking entertain inconsistency. And if I did, I no longer do that shit. I don't negotiate my worth. I don't beg for communication. And guess what? I will never freaking shrink myself to make someone comfortable. I don't apologize for being real, and I don't allow fear-based love into my life. And you shouldn't either, because no one is worth that. This episode is going to bless someone because I want you listening to understand that vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. It makes you self-aware. It makes you emotionally intelligent. It makes you human. And if someone uses your vulnerability against you, that says everything about their character and nothing about yours. The goal is never to be hard. The goal is to be whole. The goal is not to be guarded. The goal is to be grounded. The goal is not silence. The goal is to honor you. The goal is not to hide from life. The goal is to live it fully, emotionally, honestly, courageously. So if you listening today have been struggling with vulnerability, if you've been scared to open your mouth, if you've been avoiding truth, if you've been letting fear run your life like a stupid avoidant, not stupid, but Jesus, this is your time to stop running. Your healing is on the other side of honesty. Stop avoiding what you're feeling. Your peace is on the other side of courage. Your breakthrough is on the other side of vulnerability. And you deserve it. All of it. This is Both Out of the Bed with Kemesha. Thank you for listening. And if this episode touched you, share it with someone you love. And remember, healing is the real flex. Vulnerability is the real strength. And the happiest version of you is waiting on the other side of the work you need to do. Thank you.